We had iOS 16.1.1 released to the public. We had 16.2 betas. We also had AirPods updates, and there's even more to talk about with regards to iPhone 15, Apple's upcoming AR/VR headset, and much more. This is your news update for the week of November 14th, 2022. In a recent interview clip with Tim Cook, he said that they're being more deliberate with hiring during the current economic period. This is actually a clip that they played on CBS News for a full interview that's releasing tomorrow. I'll link it in the description, but the full interview airs tomorrow, Tuesday, November 15th, if you want to check it out. And they're just slowing down hiring, as I reported last week, but it looks like they're just being more deliberate to plan for the future with the economic slowdown that many other companies are doing as well. Apple has a new class action lawsuit against it regarding data collection in its own stock apps such as iMessage, App Store data, Apple Music, and more. The lawsuit alleges that Apple's push on privacy, despite having many settings to actually modify this and turn all of those settings off, it's still collecting data. It's based on information found on a jailbroken iOS 14.6 device. They said they turned off all analytics, yet it seems to have no effect on multiple tests sending data out. Apple hasn't commented yet, but we'll have to see what they say after the lawsuit. So that's something that would be a bit below. Apple Music Beta has been out for a little while at beta.music.apple.com, where you can use the full version of Apple Music right on the web without having the app. iPadOS and macOS apps, where you can go into lyrics here with this button, scroll through them, jump to parts of the songs. Apparently that's available on some songs on the beta version. Without installing any apps, you can go to beta.music.apple.com and check that out. Now, Apple's main chip supplier, TSMC, is wrapping up a chip fabrication plant in Arizona, and it's now planning another $12 billion plant north of Phoenix, Arizona. This, of course, will take time, but it's going to help ease the chip shortage eventually, and it looks like with the supply chain. So this is something we'll see in the future. They're set to open the first plant in 2023 early on, and then the next plant probably in a couple years from now. We're seeing that also from Samsung as well. Now, if you prefer not to use Apple Music and instead you're using Spotify, there's a new Apple Watch update that really improves the overall experience. On the Spotify website, you can see it here, but you can install the app, of course, and what you have is larger artwork, new animation, a blue dot you can see here, which indicates a new podcast episode, as well as the ability to like a song just by swiping it. So that's been updated and should be available now. If you have iCloud Photos, maybe on your iPhone or iPad, Microsoft is now rolling out 2023. So you may already start to see that if you're using it and you're signed into iCloud. Let me know in the comments below if you're using Windows and you see that active already. In the past, LG has been a long supplier of iPhone displays for Apple, Macs, and everything else. They're now back in the supply chain for the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, along with Samsung. This could help with supply constraints overall and help Apple get better prices on the overall cost of displays to help bring the cost of production down. I don't know that they would roll that down to the customer though. But either way, I'm curious to see, once we get some of those out in the public, if we'll actually notice a difference between the LG displays and Samsung. LG makes some of the best OLED displays on the market for home TVs, so I would expect them to be really good on the iPhone, but we'll have to wait and see. And for Christmas or the holidays, make sure you order one now. I talked about this a little bit before. If we go into the Store app, I just added a 14 Pro Max 256GB Deep Purple model to my Apple Store account here, just so we could see what the delay is. And it says order today, and we'll get it December 15th to the 21st, so about a month away. However, I have heard of a few people getting them from their carriers pretty quickly. But either way, if you want one, you'll definitely want to get in line to get that delivered by that time. Now, as far as weekly deals, we continue to have deals on AirPods Pro. AirPods Pro 2 in particular are down to $229.99 on Amazon, sold directly by Apple. So I'll link money for that, but if you don't want to use that, just go ahead to Amazon and search for it. You'll see it there, but make sure you're getting it directly from Apple. Also, the Apple TV 4K, the 2021 model, which is still fine. I've been using the 2022 model for a while. I don't really notice too much of a difference, if any at all, is $99. So you've got some discounts there, some discounts on the latest iPads for about $50 off, Macs and more. I'll link those in the description like I normally do. Now, according to a recent report by Mark Gurman, Apple's current design team is less product-focused and more cost-focused, unfortunately. So even before Johnny Ive left, the report claims that Apple operation departments had started to gain more influence over the design team. This resulted in an increased focus on costs rather than purely on look and features. This sort of makes sense if we look at the current product lineup, but something that Apple has always been known for is design leave recently as well. So hopefully they find somebody to take the lead that will really push things like Steve Jobs did. That was my favorite era, Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive, really pushing the best in design and just making the very best products they could, regardless of cost. Now, this past week, I mentioned how Apple actually updated iOS 16.1.1, AirPods, as well as AirTags as well. So lots of updates this past week. I have videos about each one of those. We also had iOS 16.2 Beta 2 as well. And so with that, 16.2, we're expecting satellite connectivity very soon. According to Apple, if we go to their website here, you can see here, use emergency SOS via satellite on your iPhone 14. Well, if you scroll down in this support document, it says emergency SOS via satellite will be available with an iOS 16 software update coming in November 2022. This is something that is a little unexpected, as last year we had iOS 15.2 released to the public in December, around December 13th. However, this year we're still on early betas of iOS 16.2, meaning we could see an iOS 16.1.2, or they just may release 16.2 a little bit earlier than they did last year. So I would expect iOS 16.2 Beta 3 this week, as soon as tomorrow. I went back and looked at what Apple did last year, and iOS 15.2 Beta 2 released on November 9th, with 15.2 Beta 3 releasing the next week on November 16th. So we definitely could see Beta 3 as soon as tomorrow or later this week. That makes a lot of sense. It's possible we could see it even after this video, but that seems more likely to be in a couple days or so. So as far as that goes, I'm looking forward to that update along with macOS updates and more. But of course, we should see some extra features with accessibility there also. So hopefully we see that in the beta this week. Now, also one thing I wanted to mention before we talk about leaks and rumors is this new feature for developers called Ask Apple. It's on developer.apple.com. You do need to be a developer in order to use it, but you can get additional information about new features, and developers will also have the ability to talk to Apple staff through question and answer sessions in Slack or a one-on-one session as needed. You can go to Ask Apple and see more information about this with Q&As with different topics. You can register. There's office hours and more for one-on-one if you need that and you're a developer. It's great to see Apple continue to support developers and hopefully even more, give them more information as needed to make the very best apps. If you're a developer and you've used this, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below how it's gone for you. Now, the iPhone 15, of course, is many months away. However, it takes many months to get everything set so that they can produce millions and millions of them. While they're still producing iPhone 14 Pro and trying to catch up on that, the iPhone 15 design should be just about done, with them getting all years in advance so they can get things ready and start getting closer to final designs. We expect a redesign where Apple went from the rounded designs of the iPhone 11 series and before to a more squared off design with the iPhone 12. Maybe we'll see a return of the rounded off designs or something completely different. However, every 3 years, we do see a redesign. We also expect USB-C or maybe no port at all. We don't really know yet, but Apple will need to comply to those laws, so we'll have to see what they do with that. We could also see the iPhone Ultra name come into play. Instead of the iPhone 15 Pro Max, we could have iPhone Ultra, just like they did with the Apple Watch Ultra. We also could see an upgraded camera with 8K. I'm not sure they'll do that just yet, but we'll have to wait and see. Of course, a new chip, an A17 Bionic, and I don't know what else they could do. We already have ProMotion as well. And according to Mark Gurman of Bloomberg, RealityOS is going to have mixed reality versions of Messages, FaceTime, Maps, and is wrapping up development for launch early next year with a focus on gaming, media consumption, and communication. Apple even has new job listings that point to work on the headset with software producer experience, visual effects, and gaming. So these things are all wrapping up. We've seen the name RealityOS in the code for quite some time, and we could see it as soon as January, but launching a little bit later as mass production is set for March 2023, according to DigiTimes. So they would show us early, maybe help developers get ready for it, show us how it works, and then get it ready maybe to show in June as a final release. We're not really sure the actual timeline, but if it starts production in March, we could see it as soon as June, I would think. But either it means specifically how it's different than maybe Oculus or MetaQuest at this point. However, it is expected to be around $3,000 for the first version. So I don't think a ton of people would buy it at that price, but maybe that's just the first version. Now, we're pretty much done with iPads and Macs and everything else for the rest of this year other than software updates. So at this point, we're just waiting for software updates. Next year is when we can expect new updates to Macs, maybe an iPad Air. And then, of course, with this newest iPad Pro M2, I had a separate review on that just the other day. It's great, but not really worth upgrading from an M1 iPad Pro, at least until we have some Pro apps and see any differences there. All of the products this year, with the AirPods Pro 2 being one of my favorites, have been great, and a lot more to talk about as Apple's pretty much done for this year. But next year is when we could see some big changes, and I really hope iOS 17 has some sort of redesign or at least stability update. I would love to see them focus on stability. I'll see you next time.